Welcome to Intuitive Astrology with Molly McCord. Thank you so much for joining me today as we're going to discuss the astrological energies of October 22nd until October 29th as we begin Scorpio season and Neptune retrograde re-enters Pisces. Neptune is going to be hanging out at 29 degrees of Pisces until January 26, 2026, signifying that we're now in a time of very big completions. The endings are going to be paramount. There will be more significant transitions and turnovers. Plus, we're at a key point in our ascension journey. So that is another big water influence that's coming in as we move into Scorpio season. I'll be touching on that more in today's show. Plus, it's important to note that Mercury has entered into retrograde territory. Yes, as Mercury passed over 20 degrees of Scorpio, Mercury is now in the area of retrograde turf. The upcoming Mercury retrograde that will begin on November 9th starts at 6 degrees of Sagittarius, and Mercury will travel back to 20 degrees of Scorpio until the end of November. So this means that right now, matters that are coming up are going to be part of an ongoing inquiry that will play out especially into November. We will be discussing this Mercury retrograde even more as we get closer to it beginning on November 9th. But this is a heads up that matters are presenting themselves right now that are going to need more of a deep dive and inquiry. There is more investigation at hand. And hey, just ask the head of security at the Louvre. There's some things to review and look into, right? There's some things that need to be improved, matters that need to be solved. And this Mercury retrograde is taking us deeper into what those potential solutions might be, but only through a deep dive of truth and facing what is uncomfortable. And in fact, that is a big theme here as Scorpio season begins, because the Scorpio energy has the intention of digging into what's below the surface, what's operating within our psyches, what is truly being felt in our emotional core. Where are we feeling the energy is motivating and passionate, but also perhaps we're coming up against some things that are uncomfortable. There's an intensity to Scorpio season, and this energy is ramping up because as the sun enters Scorpio on October 22nd at 11:51 p.m. Eastern, there is an almost immediate square to Pluto in Aquarius, and that's going to occur on October 24th. So these first few days here of Scorpio season bring about things that we need to look at honestly that can feel quite extreme. Now that we're in Scorpio season, we are in the realms of relationships, people, sharing, energy exchanges, how we do so at a more personal level, but perhaps even more secretive and even clandestine. Scorpio energy is often not out in the open. It's what's done behind closed doors, what's hidden behind the veil. And how we seek deeper understanding and meaning by trusting more of what we're feeling and sensing. Scorpio takes us out of the linear logical mind, which was the domain of Libra season. Libra is about the conversations we have, open interactions that we have with other people, what we express based on what we're thinking, and also what we take in from listening. And so now as we move into Scorpio season, we get into more of a deeper sense of, well, this is how I really feel about it. This is what's going on within me. And this is even what's connecting with more of my truth, power, and fears. So this is all part of the Scorpio intensification, where we understand that we aren't alone in the world. We need people, we need relationships. And yet this is a time to look at the people in your life and how they affect you energetically. The people who drain you, who take from you, who want a lot from you, and you're not receiving in return. Conversely, there's the people who give you power, strength, affirmations, who reinforce your energy field and perhaps make you feel more alive. This is a time to assess relationships to determine which ones are worth keeping and investing in and which ones you're outgrowing and moving away from. This is part of the transformational power of Scorpio season. And Scorpio season wants you to acknowledge your own transformational process that shows up through your connections with people. And what I find quite fascinating about this particular Scorpio season is that because it's such an intense deep dive into where we're at, it also brings up how 2025 is the year of the snake in the Chinese zodiac. And so this is a year where the wood snake is bringing our attention to what we are slowly evolving within ourselves. And I feel that this energy is going to be even more prominent as we approach the Taurus full moon on November 5th. But there are matters to trust right now. There's parts of yourself that you're meant to sit with or sit in to really hear and feel what is correct for you, where your energy strengthens, feels more empowered, feels that you're really in your truth, and then to also determine very honestly where the energy is draining you, where it's not coming through to support you or offer you something in return. And so as we move into Scorpio season, with these themes coming in even stronger, that Sun in Scorpio squares Pluto in Aquarius, and there is a very uncomfortable truth that needs to be acknowledged. Perhaps there's a deep fear that you've been wrestling with. There's a pressure and an intensity here that the universe wants you to face something. And this could feel like something you've wanted to forget, overlook, not deal with, whatever the case may be. But the Sun in Scorpio has the power to feel strong in facing and acknowledging a powerlessness or a fear. And as the sun, the brightest energy consciousness in our solar system, squares Pluto, now direct in Aquarius at 1 degree, 23 minutes, there's something you have to really understand about the truth of who you are at this time and whether or not it aligns with the future trajectory that Pluto in Aquarius wants you to be in alignment with. Meaning, there are aspects of your own consciousness from your future self, from your higher self, from your more evolved intelligence, giving you messages here that want you to cut through your own fears, your own limitations, perhaps even anything you're hiding from yourself, wants you to see yourself more clearly and be strong enough to make the necessary adjustments that are needed as we evolve. And this is the discomfort. There could be some brutal truths you have to face right now, and there could be something arriving or unfolding in your life that requires very deep honesty. Now, honesty can be many things. Honesty can be freeing and liberating. It can also be vulnerable, uncomfortable, trigger fears. But there is a need here to look at yourself, how you're showing up in the world, how you are experiencing relationships with other people, and what that is revealing to you that you can't look away from or ignore. And a Pluto square is meant to create a permanent shift in your consciousness. It's meant to show you maybe where your emotional truth is out of alignment with your higher self or your deep knowingness. You could be receiving some very honest messages from this Pluto in Aquarius that connects to your higher consciousness, your innate knowingness of what is no longer good enough for you, what is no longer in alignment with the future you want, the life you want to lead, even your dreams of how you want to experience this lifetime can be drastically changing at this time. Like you want a whole life makeover, but there are fears holding you back. And perhaps feeling like you are being held hostage or captive to the emotional intensity of these fears. So clearly this is a big energy occurring from 0 to 2 degrees of the fixed signs, so 0 to 2 degrees especially, of Taurus and Leo, Scorpio and Aquarius. We're all feeling it at a collective level, but if you have planets or points in these early degrees of the fixed signs, then this is something that you're meant to intentionally work with by stepping into the unknown, allowing yourself to change with the intention of becoming a better version of yourself in some manner. Pluto destroys, it demolishes and permanently shifts and alters any planet it comes in direct contact with. And when we have that Sun in Scorpio squaring Pluto in Aquarius, there are some very deep undercurrents that are coming to the surface. It's almost like something from the depth of the swamp is now coming up to your awareness so that you can see it for what it is and understand how it's been operating within you. This can also be a time when you need more downtime, more privacy. You want to be left alone. You want to retreat into your personal cave to hear these messages and to feel what is coming up for you. Then we pull in how Neptune retrograde has just re-entered Pisces. And as I mentioned, hangs out at 29 degrees of Pisces, the very last degree point of the full zodiac wheel. This is a point of big enlightenment. There's energies here that could feel like you're being pulled back into something that you thought you had completed and moved away from. It could feel like there is a rewind, a reverse, like you have to re-meet something that you thought you had taken care of and it was good to go and that you were free to go. But when Neptune returns to the end of the full zodiac wheel, we are re-entering a part of our consciousness that has more messages for us. It's sort of like just those final things we need before we can move ahead to the new journey and the new starts that await, especially in 2026. Now, throughout 2025, we've had a sampling of the new energies that are waiting for us. We have connected with a new momentum or new chapter that's inviting us forward. And we know that because both Neptune and Saturn entered into this new territory in Aries during the middle months of 2025. They showed us how we can stand strong in these new higher aspects of self. They gave us an awareness of what we are building next, what we're moving towards, what awaits. And so there was an initiation period here in 2025 that maybe felt quite exciting and motivating. Maybe you felt new parts of yourself opening up, that you were entering into a beginner's mindset of what you could create next in your world. And now, as we move through these final months of 2025, we are retracting back into Pisces, being pulled back into what else needs to be fully completed in order to be set free and to move ahead. And so here we have more final tasks, things we need to spiritually move through and clear out. But I'm seeing this as a very beautiful high-level Merkaba energy. I'm seeing this as a Merkaba working with Saint Germain, Kuan Yin, Christ consciousness, and some of the higher ascended masters who remind us that unconditional love is one of the highest frequencies in our universe and on this planet. And so where can we be more loving and forgiving to ourselves? Where can we offer more kindness and compassion to ourselves and to others? Where can we be in that neutral state of remembrance that this is all just a wild game, a big experience of energies on the human plane? And how can we further detach from our ego, mind, and physical selves to see the bigger picture of it all? And so as we move into Scorpio season with these very intense pressure points, and as Neptune re-enters Pisces at 29 degrees. I'm seeing the energy blossoming and blooming in the higher heart. Now, the higher heart is located right behind your back and up above the shoulder blades. It's within your auric field, and it's meant to be a higher heart energy that also honors the observer, where when you go into that energy field of the higher heart, you become an observer of your physical experience, an observer of your identity, your mind, your emotions. You enter into the realm of holding unconditional love and acceptance for yourself as you move through a human experience with its trials, tribulations, fears, and challenges. This is a place that you can go energetically to listen to your higher self's messages around how to be more loving, kind, and compassionate to yourself as we undergo these very big rolling waves of ascension and change, which certainly takes its toll on the human spirit, on the human emotions, on the mind, on the body. But when you're able to detach and go into that higher wisdom that you travel with, you're going to have more loving messages that are going to show you more of the brilliance to invest in and more of the higher perspectives to travel with. So, of course, trust what you're feeling and sensing when you tap into this higher heart energy field. But that is where I'm feeling a lotus flower blossoming as Neptune returns into Pisces. I'm also feeling a softening into ourselves. This softening feels like loving kindness. It feels like a deep soul remembrance of what you agreed to move through in this lifetime that would require you to go into emotional depths that are uncomfortable at times. But one of the driving forces of the Scorpio spirit is that there's a reason for it. There is something that awaits you that resides in the wisdom of your beingness. And so even though there's a lot of intensity and even a lot happening right now that is chaotic, overwhelming, and big, I'm feeling that part of going into this higher heart is that it offers a stillness. Calming stillness that allows you to deeply exhale and detach from what is no longer your truth. And that is a big message right now. Detaching from parts of yourself, parts of your world, detaching from people who don't mirror back your truth, who don't resonate with your energy field anymore. This is going to be a time when we open up into these higher flows of trusting what feels correct for us, even when we don't understand why. And so that is going to be something that persists as we move through Scorpio season. And this is also a theme I discussed in Monday's podcast episode, where we are now in the flows of an extended water grand trine that lasts into mid-December. So we are elevating here our intuitive knowingness. We are growing in our abilities to trust what we feel as valid indicators of information, intelligence, and where we're meant to go next. So this certainly expands how we experience our intuition, how we receive, and how we're able to be in those divine feminine flows of simply trusting what resonates and not needing it to make sense. This is a big part of this week. So it's almost like we are jumping in to the grand rapids of transformation. And that is messy, uneven, difficult. Maybe you feel like you just were shot like a cannonball into the depths of something. And there is no choice but to learn to move with the rapids, to move with this bigger force of energy that's pulsing through us, both individually and collectively. Now, with a water grand trine, the energies are ultimately beneficial and fortuitous. There is an ongoing flow of connection that keeps you in motion And it also takes you out of the body-mind connection that we rely on, perhaps to a default. It requires you to be in your intuitive grace, to trust what you're feeling, and to stay open to how the universe can carry you forward. And that would be one thing to keep in your consciousness, is that whatever is unfolding, the universe is supporting you in moving through this water grand trine and is asking you to trust that you're supported, to trust that this is all unfolding for a reason and that there's nothing you can force. Rather, it's about flow and trusting the flow, perhaps beyond what you've experienced before. The energy is that intense. So certainly a big start to Scorpio season as we move into more of the watery elements of the zodiac. Now also at this time, we have the Jupiter in Cancer squaring Chiron retrograde in Aries at 24 degrees. I discussed this in last week's show, but it's exact on October 23rd. And this is going to be an ongoing square between Jupiter in Cancer and Chiron in Aries that unfolds into early January 2026. And so this square, because it's ongoing, it will continue to amplify and bring to your attention where you're ready to emotionally grow and mature based on those original wounds that you entered this lifetime with. It's sort of like your origin story of the wounding, especially from childhood, and what is coming up now for you to handle from a place of personal responsibility, emotional maturity, and ownership over your experience and what you're feeling without projecting it, without taking it out on others, without directing anger, defensiveness, hypersensitivity towards anyone else, but rather going into your own personal sacred space in your inner world to work through what is arising within you, what needs to really be healed that maybe has left some lasting imprints or lasting marks. The wise use of this energy is to see how it's going to evolve you and how you're going to grow, as well as heal things on your own terms. There are opportunities here during this transit that unfolds for a number of months to do a type of life review and look at where you came from, especially related to family, ancestors, bloodlines, personal experiences with loved ones at a young age. That Jupiter in Cancer brings you back to the past, wants you to re-enter your own memory bank and then grow from these experiences. And because Chiron in Aries is squaring this Jupiter, there are triggers. There are things that affected your sense of self and what you thought you could do, your confidence, where you felt you were strong and capable. And this is a time to look at what is still true for me. Is this real for me or not? What can I heal at a deeper level of my being? What have I not noticed before that is now presenting itself? So this is a very personal internal exercise with the Aries and Cancer energies working together. But I feel this is also guiding us to be more healed and self-loving. There is more self-confidence here, which is part of what Jupiter wants you to claim and integrate. There is the capacity to be stronger in your sense of self. And so this is, as I said, an ongoing theme that we're going to be working through, but you could find that it's being triggered or coming up at this time, especially related to what I previously discussed around the Scorpio intensity of a pressure point, discomfort, brutal honesty, and acknowledging fears you have to face. All of this ties in to the energy here this week. And that's why, again, I'm feeling this powerful presence of the higher heart that is blooming with wisdom, understanding, and soul messages, and bring you into that point of being the observer, observing yourself, what is arising within you that needs your attention and care, and is also guiding you forward. Now, keep in mind, we're going to see this energy play out. We're going to continue to see turmoil, power plays, control games, manipulation tactics. People aren't going to look so pretty when they're in this energy. They're going to be very revealing of who they really are and what their real motivations are as well. You can't hide things anymore in these energies and in these higher frequencies. People see things for what they are. They're more aware of what's really going on below the surface. And so keep in mind, if you're the real deal, you have nothing to prove. If you're the real deal, you just keep going. You stand strong in that. Stay focused on your priorities and on your path, because it's only those who are fighting for something that reveal what they're not, what they don't have, what they lack, and they're trying to grab it in other people, or they're doing some very cruel, nasty, behind the scenes manipulation tactics to get what they want. But when you're the real deal, you stand strong in that, and you allow that to be the part of yourself you deeply trust, because that's what the universe sees as well, and that's what the universe supports. So we are going to see the back and forth continue. Yes, I am thinking about what is unfolding in the U.S. government at this time with the ongoing shutdown. Will that be resolved? Will that come to an end? Because it is reaching some peak pressure points where the consequences are getting bigger and affecting more people. And as I look at what is unfolding here over this next week, I think that when Mercury in Scorpio and Mars in Scorpio trine Saturn, that's when we could have some new developments that are solidified, stable, and clear. So the government shutdown could certainly be over by the end of October. This week has the energy of deals being made, agreements happening, and more solutions being presented. So what we're going to see with this Mercury in Scorpio are two trines that create the water grand trine. Mercury in Scorpio trines Jupiter in Cancer at 24 degrees, then trines Saturn retrograde in Pisces at 26 degrees. This is unfolding October 24th and October 25th. So this is when the agreements, business developments, communications, projects, and plans can start to connect with a bigger picture direction. This is a good time for those communications and information to be said, spoken, expressed, especially if it comes from an honest, true place, which is something the water signs really want. The water signs will pick up on lies and inauthenticity more rapidly, just sensing something's off. That's not true. I don't believe those words. The water signs will connect with the heart frequency and what is coming across truthfully, as well as what's not being said. So that's interesting right now with the strong water sign influence. We've just moved out of the strong air sign influence where we had the ongoing air grand trines. A lot was said or spoken, openly communicated, a lot of thoughts, logic, rationale, right? Well, now that we're in the domain of the water signs, what is not being said is quite powerful. What is not being spoken, but instead is deeply felt, is also a communication, is also giving you messages and understandings. And this is another way that we learn to trust our intuition and what we're picking up on in an environment. And so this Mercury in Scorpio is very alive with what's going on below the surface. So again, not only does Mercury trine Jupiter and trine Saturn, but then Mercury goes on to trine this Neptune retrograde in Pisces at 29 degrees, where the information is coming through at a higher intuitive level. And this is where there's going to be new understandings that you're meant to truly feel and integrate. There's going to be information coming through that you just sense it's accurate and truthful. There's powerful incoming realizations this week, And not only is Mercury strong by making these trines to these outer planets, but so is Mars. Mars in Scorpio is traveling behind Mercury. Mars is trining Jupiter in Cancer, then trining Saturn retrograde in Pisces. And here comes Mars taking action on what he feels. This Mars is a force, and that means there's things that need to be handled and taken care of. You need to be moving forward based on what you know is true for you, because this Mars is ready to be empowered, strong, forceful. And I feel that this Mars is also deeply moving through some higher states of truth and personal empowerment around what he really wants. There could be something you are ready to go for right now, and you might even be surprised. Maybe you've been waiting it out, thinking about it, not sure how much you want it, and then the universe comes through and says, it's go time. This is a green light here, and there's something that needs to move ahead for your own personal advancement, and because the energies align for forward movement. I feel that when Mars enters into this water grand trine this week, there's something you can't deny. There's something that's been speaking loudly to you that is now pulsing through the physical body, requiring movement and action, which is Mars. And Mars is strong in Scorpio. This is, I have to do it. I have to go for it. I have to make my moves now. This could be where you're feeling powered up and stronger than you felt before. And there's an alignment that's still in motion here with Mercury in Scorpio and Mars in Scorpio talking to each other, bringing in the plans for the movement, bringing in the information, logistics, and specifics that need to be put into motion and put into play. I'm just seeing this as a very dominating energy right now. And as I look at the transits of this time, we don't have anything connecting with Venus and Libra. Venus is still moving through one of her home signs of Libra, but she's maintaining an internal balance, a heart balance, if you will, a balance between your internal masculine and feminine, understanding what you need that brings you peace and internal harmony. Of course, this Venus in Libra is wonderful at social connections, partnerships, friendships, joint endeavors. And maybe there's a part of your world that feels very imbalanced right now. And that's where this Venus in Libra is reigning supreme. But then when we flip over here to the Scorpio area of your chart, there's an intensity that can't be denied. There's things that need to move ahead. And I feel that what is coming up for us is based on new levels of empowerment, where we're not allowing fears to hold us back, because the universe is signaling that there's an alignment here that supports where you're advancing. It could be as simple as, I'm not going to allow this fear to stop me from going for what I want next. Or I'm not going to allow an experience from the past, a wound or a very difficult previous experience to stop me from my future and from what I want to create in this chapter of my life. And as I say all this, I'm seeing this interesting alignment between past versions of self being overlapped by future versions of self that are stronger, bigger, and more empowered. So the past energies or the past versions of self are starting to diminish in their hold on you, in their impact or their influence, because here comes a much bigger energy field that says you're bigger than this, you're stronger than this, you are more than what you've been through or what you thought has defined you. So are you capable of owning these higher frequencies, standing strong in them, and then doing something about it, moving ahead into this new expanded version of yourself that is more powerful and is already alive within the frequencies on the planet. So I hope all this is resonating, because I know it can seem like there's a lot going on. And that's exactly what's happening. There's a lot going on where we are ascending in multiple levels of ourselves all at once. Mercury and Mars in Scorpio are ascending by making these trines to outer planets. plus the intensification of the squares that I previously mentioned, are showing us we have to change our patterns. We have to deeply shift parts of ourselves that maybe we thought were afraid to grow, or we didn't know how to handle the intensity of growth that was required. But the universe is saying now is the time. You can't let fear hold you back. You can't stay in a comfort zone. Can't stay in the past. Can't remain in a lower version of self when this is an ascending timeline and change is the only constant, as they say. So this comes down to how well you deal with your own personal evolutionary journey, how open and willing you are to grow and transform. That's what's coming up this week. That's what you can't escape. And that is also going to be what brings about the most gifts and brilliant breakthroughs. Now, right after Mercury trines these three outer planets in water signs, Mercury enters Sagittarius on October 29th. And Mercury moving into Sag is always an interesting placement because Mercury is not strong in Sagittarius. We call this Mercury in Sagittarius in his detriment because he is furthest away from one of his home signs of Gemini. Sagittarius is the opposite of Gemini. So here Mercury is very far away from his home turf, where he is now required to go beyond the details and to look at the bigger meaning. So Mercury enters Sagittarius and we move into the realms of ideology, philosophy, ancient knowledge, and deep wisdom, and connecting with the bigger picture of it all. Mercury in Sagittarius is where we connect with our belief systems that guide us through life. And as I mentioned, Mercury is in his retrograde territory now. And so that means that as Mercury moves into Sagittarius, we're going to be reviewing what we really believe and if it fits our current trajectory and life path. Are you holding on to limiting belief systems that you have outgrown? Are you realizing that some things simply don't align anymore and you're willing to question it? You're willing to detach and look at it in a way that will bring about new answers and new understandings. So I feel that as this Mercury enters Sagittarius on October 29th, we're going to start to see parts of our journey differently. We're going to start to see maybe what we didn't understand before. And that will be a big part of Mercury retrograde that starts November 9th. But what we're moving through here is a very deep shift in our core beliefs, in what we have subscribed to. And this means we're going to have to be consciously opening our minds to learn more that we didn't understand before. This upcoming Mercury retrograde that begins on November 9th at 6 degrees of Sagittarius is where we're going to take a pause and be perhaps more ready to contemplate what we know and say, maybe I don't have all the information. Maybe I'm willing to challenge my opinions. Maybe I'm willing to look at where I felt righteous or where I thought this was the right answer. This was the best solution. So I feel that this is going to be a phase of seeking more information, more answers, and even evaluating, am I asking the right question in the first place? So essentially keep an open mind, stay open to what you don't know, be willing to see something in a new light or in a different way. And that's going to be one of the big themes as we move into November. I will have a separate podcast episode for you discussing this particular Mercury retrograde even more because it is quite an influential one. This Mercury is not only traveling between 6 degrees of Sagittarius back to 20 degrees of Scorpio in your chart, but it continues to make aspects to the outer planets and continues to engage in an ongoing conversation here that is going to be quite fascinating. I think we're going to have many swerves and curves, dips and dives. There's going to be a lot that's revealed during this particular Mercury retrograde, a lot of truth coming to light. We're going to have more information to dissect and sit with. It's going to be a big time of also tapping in to how you are perceiving the world around you. if you're willing to go higher and to elevate to new perspectives, and what that really means, what that really looks like. So again, I'll be discussing that more in a separate podcast episode. But as we move through this first week of Scorpio season, Mercury is very active. A lot of information is flying around, and there's too much to keep track of or even stay aware of. So in addition to the other themes I mentioned of this week, this could be a time period when your life priorities are changing. Yes, it is that big. We've been talking about how big 2025 is and how it's meant to change us. It's meant to shift what is no longer right for us and what is no longer correct. And so you might be looking at your life priorities and realizing that big transformations are underway, which is certainly what is right on time at a cosmic level. On that note, I just had a wonderful conversation with Alex Ferrari over at Next Level Soul, where we discussed what is coming up in the next few years, where we not only have the rising of divine feminine energies within all of us, expanding our hearts, empathy, and true connections, but also inviting us into new ways of living our life based on energetic intelligence. Yes, we know that artificial intelligence is here and changing our world permanently, but we still have a responsibility to ourselves to choose how we're going to show up on the planet, what we're going to invest in, the importance of connections, relationships, people, the importance of investing in your passions and your creativity, and how that's going to be an ongoing theme as the roles of humans change on the planet. So Alex and I talked about all this and more. Of course, you can listen to that on his podcast, Next Level Soul, which is on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. But we also touch on the upcoming financial changes of 2028 and 2029. And I'll be sharing more about that with you very soon. So if you're interested, I hope you enjoy that conversation between Alex and I. And I also wanted to let you know that I just found out my latest book, Soul Growth Astrology, is on sale on Amazon for only 99 cents, the Kindle version. Now, this is USD, 99 cents. I don't believe it's going to be the same currency in other countries, but in the US, it's on sale for 99 cents. And this is a book that goes through how to work with all 12 astrology signs with a focus on moving through challenges and limitations of each one. So for example, here we are in Scorpio season, focuses on living your truth, working with all or nothing expectations, being authentic and sharing your true self instead of hiding or withholding parts of yourself that you don't think others will accept or love. And I also give you exercises in how to move through these energies. One of the exercises is in developing a personal energy shield, especially if you are a highly empathetic Scorpio, where you feel a lot all around you all the time. This is a way to develop that personal energy shield that supports you and allows you to move through your world feeling empowered. Another exercise is about redefining success and what that means to the Scorpio energy and what that looks like and how to be open to more understandings of success. So this book is meant to give you realistic, practical ways of experiencing astrology signs. So you apply it to your chart by understanding, okay, if your sun is in Scorpio, you would read the Scorpio chapter first. But if your moon is in Aquarius, then you would read the Aquarius chapter to understand how to utilize your moon in Aquarius experience. Then you can take this book and apply it to all the planets in your chart. So if your Mars is in Capricorn, then you would read the Capricorn chapter to understand how to support your Mars, and so on. So this is a book that's designed to be a reference tool as well as to give you practical exercises to integrate and easily use. So again, that's called Soul Growth Astrology. The Kindle version is on sale for only 99 cents. I'll put a link below the podcast episode here. And I hope it has some good messages and exercises for you. Plus, I share client stories in this book too, from sessions and from how people are living their own astrological energies. So as always, wishing you a beautiful week ahead, a week of evolution and personal transformation. I hope it feels that this week also guides you to a clearer understanding of your power. And I also hope that visualization of the higher heart serves you in connecting with your soul's wisdom at this time and how you have access to a calm stillness that can be a welcome respite as we move through these intensities. I'll be back every Monday and Wednesday for a new podcast episode. As always, thank you for your time, energy, and presence. Greatly appreciate you and you making the time to listen to this podcast. And I look forward to connecting with you soon as we continue to move through the wild energies of our times. Take good care, and I'll see you back here soon.